All right, so welcome guys. So what our mission here is, and I know a lot of you guys from our chapters all across the country, but our mission with Education First Alliance is to give value, to give knowledge, to give tools to help you fight back against critical race theory and a variety of other things going on in school systems, be it at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level. We have a saying that I say all the time, and it's important for all of us to kind of internalize this, and it is that transparency is for the government and privacy is for us, right? And with critical race theory and SEL and these surveys and everything else that we've been talking about, that's been flipped on its head, right? We're been left out in the dark. And in a lot of places, we have to go and get permission just to see, curriculum, etc. And so I'm going to monitor the chat here. If you've got something to say, if you can mute yourselves now and just put it into the chat, I'm going to do the very best to get that to you. So let me just see. I don't know if you guys can raise your hand here, like your virtual little hand, but by show of virtual hands, how many of you guys have done an actual FOIA request or an open record request? Okay, I'm seeing a couple of the little virtual hands go up. Okay, cool. We hear all the time that, hey, our organization is going to get a lawyer so that we can get an open records request. And I say to them, what are you, stupid? Don't do that. That's going to cost you a couple $1,000s. I'm going to show you how to do it for free. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the kind of documents that can be received. Well, let me just back up. So again, the government should be transparent. They're typically not. And so our job is to retrieve documents and retrieve policies and information about how our government works. That's what this is here for. And so, this is just activism 101 and being a responsible citizen. So let me talk about what kind of documents that would help you see how the government is run. And tonight, for our purposes, the government will be public school systems. A FOIA request or an open records request would not apply to a private school. It would not apply to a nonprofit. It would not apply to a business, right? It would apply if the government is doing business. Let's say there's a company called Apple. Have you ever heard of it? All right. And we want to get to the bottom of what we think they're doing in schools. The party that we would send the request to would be the government. Okay, so let me tell you about the kind of documents that you can get. There are a lot of them. Equity contracts. Okay, we need to know that. In fact, the number one mistake that parents make and activists make is not having evidence and complaining about a problem without proper evidence, right? Equity contract, great place to start. Calendars, policies, receipts. If there's a big conference that let's say there's an equity conference that that people are going to, you can get the receipts for that. Reports, algorithms even. In fact, if there's some sort of algorithm they're using for equity, you can, request to see that algorithm. That is another good way to go about things. Manuals, right? If there are manuals that they do not have online, that can happen sometimes. It always is helpful to check to be sure. Memos, agendas, lesson plans, crime reports, or incident reports. I know that we're all pretty focused on getting critical race theory and SEL and surveys out of our schools, but we may be missing where, policies have changed and students may not be as safe as they were, and we want to highlight that. So I've done that in the past. Lawsuits is another thing. Let's say that there have been lawsuits and maybe the reporters have not covered it. You may want to go back 5 to 10 years to find out if there's been any IEP claims, anything like that, and emails as well. And I'm going to show you how to do a proper email FOIA tonight so that you get every single thing that you need. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Oh, and you guys are thanking me for doing this? No, thank you, because thank you for what you're doing. What we want to do is empower you to get as many facts as you can possibly get. You're going to need to know how to do this stuff, and you're going to need to be very proficient at what you do. So I'm going to just show you a preview of something that I got. Let's see, in one of my FOIAs. This is a budget. This is one of my my requests that I got back, and I'll tell you what I did. I'll show you in a minute. But this is some of it will be redacted, but this is over 100 pages of emails that I got about equity, about the speakers, about what they talked about. And so this is what it will look like when it gets back to you. Okay, I mean, and so you're going to have to do some digging. You're going to have to do some digging on the front end to ask the right questions, and some digging on the back end to look through this. So with our groups, what we do is we have a committee that of 10 to 12 people that will go through this, you know, and be with it within days, that we'll have what we're looking for. And it's also, you know, good to do it with people. If you're going through copious amounts of documents, I mean, look how much stuff this is, then you're going to need help doing it. It's a glass of wine and jazz and friends night sort of thing, if you will. And so this is how you can get to the bottom of some nefarious stuff going on, right? So I'm going to look up right quick. Let's see. I'm going to look up a records request to show you guys in just a minute. Hang on. Oh, one thing while I'm looking through this, one thing that I want to advise you to do is, and this may not be second nature for you, but make very good friends with the communication department, because a lot of times they're going to give you stuff and they'll say, don't bother going to get a records request. So look at them as your friend, not your enemy. Okay. Because you definitely will, yeah, look at it as a friend and an enemy type of thing. So let me share this screen. Hold on. Okay. So here's an example of a record request that I did. And this is a pretty official one. So look at the, and by the way, every state that you're in, you need to know the law. So you need to know your open records law immediately. There's going to be a couple things you're going to need. You're going to need to know how much time that the statute gives the government to respond. It could be 10 days. If you're in North Carolina, it's going to be a reasonable amount of time. And so, you know, you need to know and understand that before you request the records. So you'll see that I set it up this way. Pursuant to this, I request this. It's just my standard go-to. What I'm looking at was this. Here's my research question. Are white students being held back unfairly? My bigger question is, how is equity being applied? Is it being applied fairly? Is it capricious? What's going on? For one particular school that got to my radar screen. Why? Because the principal had made repeated and repeated public statements about needing to settle the score and even things out and even penalize white students. So I wanted to make sure that I had my target school right here. And then I also got more schools. So it's kind of like a control, right? Because I wanted comparison. So I found it the best approach not to march right in. And when you have a target thing, you need context. So you need to select, either it's random selecting or whatever you choose. You need to have other controls to look for. Okay. Yep. if you're not on mute, make sure you put yourself on mute. Okay, so this is another statement that you want right here. I also request that the fees be waived, as this request is in the public interest. Okay, in other words, what you're saying is that you're not going to make money off of them. You're going to, this is something that, you need. I've only once or twice been asked to pay a cost. And so that's usually no problem. Secondly, or thirdly, you need to put how you want your files. I prefer the request by email, or they can send it to you via CD-ROM. So if you're asking the government, the Department of Education, and by the way, there's an online form for that, which I'll show you more about that in a minute. More than likely, they will send you a CD-ROM that you will have the documentation on. And so you'll see this here. I look forward to your response. So you just want to remind them what the statute is and how long that they have to give that to you. Okay, so, and so that's how you do that. I'm going to put up another one here because I want you guys to be very precise when you're looking for emails. And a lot can go sideways from that. I have found that the hard way. Okay, and also one other thing I wanted to add, when you are doing these records requests, having controls is very important in all of this, because you want to make sure that your own biases does not lead you down the wrong path, right? We want to make sure that we have everything very precise and that we're able to, to deal with this. Let's see. Here's another one that I did. And this is one that I want you guys to do because it's critical that you do this particular one. In fact, let it be your first one that you do because results are very important. This was something that you guys all need to know about. This is a public record request for any complaint filed alleging discrimination based on orientation, gender, etc. The reason why this is important is because if your school is doing some things and pushing some policies in the name of equity, let's say they're opening the bathrooms up to boys and girls, and you're finding that there has been a copious amounts of sexual harassment complaints and all that, your question then is, why are you inviting trouble by opening up the restrooms to both genders? And that was my question here. It's has there been any alleged discrimination or different treatment or whatever? And I wanted to know that because when schools are instituting policies in the name of equity, you want to know what their basis is. Why are they doing it? And usually they're not doing it for any good reason at all. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, I need to find another one. And if there's a question that you have right quick, you can just pop it into the chat and I will answer it. And tonight is unlike any of the other Zooms I do, because usually it's like something very exciting and I'm, all talking about something that's very interesting. This is a bit dry, right? Because it's like the nuts and bolts of doing these requests, but it's very, very important here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to switch over and show you this. Sometimes we have to get boring though, in order to get exciting and find out the actual facts of what's going on. So here is a request that I made that is an example of how you want to do your email requests. So here's how I set it up. Under the law of this state, I'm requesting. So I'm being very explicit. All communication to or from the superintendent, her assistant, containing these keywords in the header, footer, body, or address bar from all public email accounts and government issued phones for these particular dates. This makes it very easy to search. So this is what I did. The one mistake that I did make in this particular request, the one mistake that I made is I forgot attachments. I would want any attachments also. So if you're screenshotting this right now or making a note of it, please also put attachments. That's the one thing I would have done differently. And again, this is the same verbiage that we're using. I request that fees be waived. And as soon as we get done with this tonight, I'm going to post a picture of this letter so that you're able to see. But strategically asking the right questions, it's absolutely crucial. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like when you're doing a form, because sometimes you're going to have an online form that you're going to need to fill out. Let's see if I can find an example of this. Yeah, you're going to have a form that it will say, and you need to do your homework, you guys. You need to make very, very certain that you know how they want you to get the records. In other words, if you're trying to get the records and you're sending them an email and they're saying, wait a minute, you know, you're not going to send an email, we need another thing. You're going to be sitting there and waiting for a very long time to get something and you're not going to get it. So yeah, definitely make sure that you're following their procedure and you know exactly how to do it. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, so this is an example of an agency that, and usually the statewide agencies are going to make you do this. They're going to say, here's the form, your information, your request. So you're a citizen, you're a taxpayer, you are allowed to get these documents. So it's going to make me do all this. So then it will take you to another screen that will let you do that. And so that's how you want to do that. And then you want, what I like to do is I stay on them. I stay on them big time and make sure that I'm writing every week. I'll send an email. Hey, Sarah, how's it going? But
I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I guess that was my assistant who was happy to be here. But you definitely want to make sure that you stay on them, and you want to make it sound urgent, and you want to amp up the rhetoric, because you want them to think that they're going to be sued. You can sue within a reasonable amount of time for these documents. You don't want to have to, because it's probably $500 just to get a letter out, but you may have to do it. So Mark here is asking, can we request curriculum data? Absolutely. And so let's talk about that. Let's walk through a use case for that. First of all, where do you start? Right? I would not send a request and say, I want to see your curriculum on critical race theory. That's not going to work. You need to know the usual suspects. So the usual suspects, I want to see your social emotional learning curriculum, because that's where it's embedded. I want to see your history curriculum. I want to see your social studies curriculum. I want to see your reading lists. That's where you're going to find the most confrontational stuff, right? Then Mark, what I would do is I would say, okay, I would like to see it for the last 2 years, and I'd like to see it for this year. We need a data set. The biggest mistake that people make is to ask for the curriculum for this year, right? We need a longitudinal look at what it is. We need to understand, maybe then how else would you vary it? Maybe you would say, I would like to know what the curriculum is across the 3 teachers that are here for this grade. But you want to err on the side of getting more data than you need to paint the complete picture that you need. So Elizabeth has asked, how do you know who to send it to? That is the most important question. And so it'll take you a little bit of sleuthing, won't take you that long. So you'll go to the website. Let's say I'm going to go to the North Carolina Department of Instruction. How do we send public records requests? It'll take you a little bit of clicking around, but you'll be able to see that. And then I will find out, oh, it's via a form. Also, Elizabeth, you can pick up the phone and ask. You want to start with the communications department. So whoever's running the communications department will know who to send you to. So knowing who to send it to is absolutely crucial. So curriculum is fair game. And so I'm going to put up again, I think this might benefit you. I'm going to put up again the words I used and the statements I used so that you can take another look at it and kind of copy it down. But it's very straightforward. And once you've done it a couple of times, you'll get the gist of it. And so again, this is, I want, and what I'm looking at, I'm looking to see if anybody's been thrown shade at me and my organization and my people. That's what I was looking for. Right? So that's what I want to know. And I may want to know it from different language the next time. So let me see if I can show you another one where I'm using a bit more specific language. This isn't something that I want you to sit down at your desk and just pop this sucker out without thinking. It takes planning. It takes lots of planning to know what questions to ask. You know, you don't want to just say, you know, whatever. Let's see. Okay, so here's another one I want to show you. And I'm infamous for this. If I think one side is going to take longer or maybe not produce what I want them to, or there's a trust issue, I'll go to the one side that I think sent the communication and the one or two sides that I think received the communication, just to make sure I'm getting a complete composite of what I need here. So this is, yeah, I'm looking through a particular teacher who was sending some inflammatory stuff on Twitter. I just want to see if he's done it on school time. And so I'm looking for keywords, and he's in a union, right? So I want to see if during his work hours, he's been using any of these things and saying this on company time. Also, you should know that if you're following teachers and radical people and even school board members, look at the time of day they're sending tweets and doing things. If they're supposed to be at work and they work for Dewey, Cheatham and Howe law firm, and they've been giving you a hard time, and it's, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they're tweeting out horrible things, you might want to just pick up the phone and call one of the partners there and let them know that during work time, they're using their work time to do text messaging. I have a funny story for you. I did just that. I got a school here in North Carolina, was texting or tweeting Black Lives Matter stuff, and put an immediate stop to it from their official account. So just looking and being a sleuth and doing the things we need to hold government accountable, that's our jobs. So everybody should know some of this stuff. So I'm going to open this up to questions because I want to make sure that you are getting, it looks pretty easy because it is fairly easy. The intelligent part of it, or the strategic part of it, is in asking questions. So does anyone have any questions that I can answer?
I have a question. My kids they're all older. They're all out of school. They're all in college, but and the ones that have gone to higher education are the ones that I can't have a conversation with anymore because they don't think anything like me. So, or they have, I'm sure you guys all know what I'm trying to say, but yeah. So it scares me because all my kids, the kids that didn't go to college or to university, they're normal, they don't think like their siblings. They can have conversations with their siblings also. So it scares me because I have a lot of little kids here in this neighborhood, and I really don't go to this. I don't drop off the kids at school anymore. I don't, do any of that, but it scares me for the future of any of the children. So how can I go as just a regular person to the school that doesn't really have, I mean, they could lock the schools up, during school hours. You have to, like, who are you? Are you a parent? You have to kind of buzz in and buzz out. So I'm not too sure how to even go about getting the information I need to get.
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Yvonne. First of all, thank you for taking an interest in this when you think you don't have a dog in the race, but you absolutely do. First of all, taxpayer, you are one. Secondly, your children have to grow up in a world where these are our next leaders, right? They need to be protected. And another thing, we're Americans, and in this country, we protect human rights, period, in a discussion. And so I believe, as many of you do, that human rights are being trampled upon every single day, all the time, at the behest of our government using our taxpayer funds. That's the kind of thing that we want to get to the bottom of. So we've got to transform ourselves into thinking that we are just parent activists. We are human rights defenders. We are defending children that really their parents may not be with it. They may not know a lot about this stuff. In fact, a lot of them don't. They're working, they're just trying to survive. And then, Yvonne, what you're doing is you're being very giving. You're being giving to the families that are not able to do what you're doing. And so and that is great. And so what you can start, a great starting point for you, whoopsies, sorry. A great starting point for you would be to pick up the newspaper or whatever and say, wow, okay, this school was having a transgender story hour for a kindergartner. Start there. Who was the contract with? How much did they pay? How many? Okay. Then 2 weeks later, you get the information. What do you do? Start a blog. You could be the worst writer ever. 3 paragraphs, put it out there, and guess what? Do it again and again and again. That's why so many people team up with us and become a chapter and affiliated with us, because we do the journalism. We help walk you through that because we are investigative journalists, and the best way to actually get this stuff out there and to expose it is to expose it. So that's what I would absolutely say. And thank you for what you're doing, because you're going to find something, you're going to hear something in your community of something bonkers going on. You're in Massachusetts, you are going to hear it. And then, by the way, send the information to us, because we write about it, we do it, we take action, or other groups out there. So I'm going to answer Mark's question. Can we request at the state level? Oh, Mark, I did not plant you in the audience, but I'm glad you're here. Let me tell you what, so many folks are focused on the district level. You've got critical race theory, social emotional learning, and these surveys coming in from the top down. I always advise, know where the problem is coming from. Do not bang your head on the concrete week after week going to school board meetings if a lot of this stuff is coming from the state level. I would say start at the state level and then go to the district. But again, if you're like Yvonne and you're hearing of stuff going on, et cetera, you may want to start, Yvonne, at your local district and say, wow, transgender story hour. And then you get your documents. You're like, holy cow, do you mean to tell me there's a statewide grant for this all over the state? And then you can either start from the top down or up, down, or crisscross, but nothing is off limits as far as that. What is the parent's right in North Carolina if your child is not gifted or handicapped? I mean, you have the same right to information as everyone else. So I don't think there's any distinction. Someone else asked in the chat, is anything off limits? Unfortunately, teachers' performance records are now off limits. Wouldn't that be a Jim Dandy thing to get? I think it would. I think it would. So I think there's a bill that's passing through or being presented at the legislature. I'm not sure if it may be at the Senate right now, that is seeking to change that, but we ought to get that. And here's another thing. In North Carolina, especially, background checks on teachers, they're not very current. And so, Yvonne, if you're really into sleuthing and things like that, you may want to run background checks on teachers. That would be a huge service to your community, and get a specialized Facebook page that would kind of put that out there. Here's another question. What percentage of the time do you receive no response or extremely delayed response? Wow. Yeah. I'm going to answer that. Because I'm with the media, it does, I do things a couple of different ways. It has happened. So what's the percentage of the time I get no response? I've never not gotten a response. Thumbing the noses at the laws, etc. There's been one time where we've had to sue for documents. I was in Durham. So that did happen. But a lot of times I am actually working on a story, and I will email and I'll say, look, I would like to know the following questions, and I have a deadline of 3 hours, and I usually get a response. But that's for a legitimate purpose and in that. So what I'm saying is stay on them, and this is your right. If you know of a lawyer that would help you, get them lined up right away. Tell them what you're going to do. Also, like budgets, I've looked into budgets, but I feel like payments are buried under line items. Could you request payments made to ABC company? Yes, you can. But if it's in North Carolina, I don't know if you guys were aware of this or not, but let me see if I can get this up for you, because I want you to see where you can go. And I would imagine that this is for every state. Let's see. Shoot. Wait a second. Yes, I type with one finger, you guys. We have actually a fantastic database called Open Budget NC. I'm going to show it to you and show you how it works here right now. Okay. All right. So it's right here. And so what I can do, you guys, is I can go, if there's a vendor, takes forever. But I can see here, budgets, all kinds of things. So if I'm going to select a filter here and the year 2021, I can put, let's see, let me search by vendor. And I can put my vendor in. So let's see if it's, let's just see if it's, I don't know. Okay, so it's first run computer services, whatever. All right, it's going to tell me for 2021, here's the department, they used it, right? And here's how much they spent. So a lot of times you can get it that way. You can also check on the same database, grants. Go to federalspending.gov, federalspending.gov, and you can check grants for any nonprofits. That would include equity trainings, etc. And it does it by state, by department. You can also tell how much and what grants your districts are getting from the federal government with that database. Also check for PPP loans, because a lot of equity training companies we have found have gotten PPP loans. Awfully nice training to hate each other and divide on, company nickel. Okay, let's see, like budgets. Okay, how would you word a DEI training, SEL or OER, that doesn't cost a ton? I'm not sure I understand that one. So Elena, can you send that one again? Teacher union communicate. Okay, wow, cool. That's the problem, is you cannot search the teachers union. They're a private entity. And so you would want, anything done via work email. That's the problem. Anything done via work phone as well. So you'd be able to request that. You've got to know the names of the people involved. So whose hand is up? Whose little tiny little hand? Question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm dialing in late. Can you hear me?
Hey, William. Yes. How can I help?
Well, I'm here in Fairfax County, and and I have had multiple FOIAs responded to with, sorry, we can't share that with you. It's attorney-client privilege.
Oh, can you give me an example of what you asked?
Yes, there were, I asked about a assertion by the chairman of Fairfax County that Gilbert versus Reed Supreme Court case required them to restrict the size of American flags that could be flown in the county. And I got a response that there were 91 responsive emails in the system, and that they could not provide them because of client attorney privilege, being the county attorney.
Well, I mean, I do know that if it's I mean, yes, that's a problem.
Well, it was a FOIA. They said there were 91 responsive emails, and they were going to be so nice to me, they would not charge me for searching for those emails, and that I should be very pleased that they weren't going to charge me. When I contact my school board member, she immediately turns every question I send her over to a FOIA. And last year I paid $75 to get the truancy rate data on Fairfax County schools.
Okay,
So an elected official, I don't think, should be turning questions over to FOIA.
no. So first of all, this is a reason, William, why you need to join a group, is because number one, what we in particular do, others do it as well, is we figure out who's already FOIA'd the information, right? And to figure out, okay, who has that, whatever, where can we find it? And then, I mean, you know, you need that publicized. So I mean, you need to link up with someone if you're not already, and a whole bunch of people, because they need to know what candidate said that you've got a FOIA to ask a stinking question. A lot of times they've got us over a barrel, right? A lot of times.
Well, I'm very linked up, but
Good.
you know, so I think what the response I have gotten from the linked up type of people is a lawsuit needs to be filed, because Fairfax County is in violation of the FOIA regulations.
Well, I would do that. I would do that. And by the way, it's really simple to do that. And judges do not take too kindly to information being withheld. So that's what I would do. So I hope I was able to answer that.
Where's the source to file a lawsuit?
The source, I mean, you want to get pro bono lawyers. I mean, and that's
Right.
again, being so that you are linked up with a group, I would definitely start that ball rolling immediately.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you bet. Good luck to you, William. Okay, when requesting SEL curriculum for the year and previous 2 years, would you do the entire district or break it down by grades? And so I know in North Carolina, the SEL, North Carolina has a contract with Castle SEL. And so figuring out who the vendor is important. If you can figure out the vendor, then usually you can find this stuff online. And so I would definitely go to the district, but a lot of times that's going to be state. So can you FOIA PTA to see their interactions with teachers unions or specific area where PTA dollars are spent to determine if PTA monies are being spent on that? Unfortunately, I want to say that I'm not sure. I want to say my gut is a PTA is a separate club. And I know that PTAs of America is a nonprofit. And I believe that they are affiliated and in charge of that. But again, anytime that public property is used, or public space or public dealings going on, you'll be able to find that out. So if PTA member Jamie was interacting with Miss Smith, who's the principal, Miss Smith's information could definitely be FOIA'd. Any agendas can be FOIA'd, receipts can be FOIA'd, any of that. Okay, here is another one. I'm from Silicon Valley. Wow. And you're on our side? God love you. AB 101 was voted on last week. I believe it passed. Are we wasting our time speaking at school boards? The county of Santa Clara or the state. We have a huge mountain to climb, have no times to waste. Thank you, North Carolina, for all you're doing. Awesome. I am a different bird, and I'm going to tell you something that most people, nobody agrees with me that's doing this stuff. I'm not a fan of going to the school board unless you're going to make a spectacle. That's always good. You know, I'm just not a fan of doing it repeatedly. I like to tackle the problem from the source. So it depends on the problem. What I like to do is this, Lindley. I like to do this. Most of the time I'll ask people, okay, why are you going to the school board? Because I'm going to give them a piece of my mind, right? Doing it once is fine. But what I like to do better is, let's say you've got a school board of 9 people, 6 of them are deadbeats. What I would do is organize on the same night as the school board meeting is going on. I would organize in all 6 districts an enormous meeting and a public hearing to talk about what a dirtbag the school board member is. And I would do it the same night as they're over having their school board meeting. And I would live stream the entire thing, and I would do it every single night that they had the meetings. I would be going door to door. I mean, I would know that district better than that school board member does. Because think about it. Your real goal is to get their sorry butts out of there. How are you going to accomplish that while you're at a school board meeting? It's hard to do. And so you want them to know, while they're taking their sorry butts up, wasting the taxpayer dollar doing this, you're going to be working your butt off to make sure that every single person in their district knows the things they've done. And you want to make sure that you're showing them that you're doing it. So that's what I would do. And Silicon Valley, I would make doggone sure that I would start from the state level. Are you wasting your time? I don't think you're wasting your time. It's never a waste of our time to do this. Never. And yeah, and there are many of us, and don't be fooled. That's exactly right. I mean, look at, you got Caitlyn Jenner out there saying that all this stuff is a bunch of hooey as well. And so when you've got Caitlyn Jenner in your corner, and you know, that's very public in California, I don't know your feelings about Caitlyn Jenner, but even riding that wave may be helpful in certain circles. I don't know, but I know that she's speaking out against that as well. Re-grants, RFPs, that means request for a proposal. Here's a good question. And grant descriptions readily available. I'm wondering about specific strings attached to receiving federal, oh, I love you already, grant money that spells out how much acceptance of the funding requires specific CRT objections to be met. So the question is this, is that, and I'm going to see if I can show you this. What happens is when your state accepts federal dollars, there are strings attached. And by law, a school is absolutely required to publicly post what they're using the grant money on. And so, yes, you will need to go fish around on your state Board of Education to find that it'll be called a draft grant or some draft program. But again, I want to say this again, by law, states need to post how they're going to be using federal money. And guess what? They ask for they ask for public comment. Do they give a rat's fat butt about getting your comment? No, but it's by law. And would you be surprised to learn the public very rarely knows when that public comment period is? Now we make sure we drop the dime on our state and made sure a lot of people raise their voices, but I would say 50% of the things that you need to find out are going to be on the Board of Education's website. Yeah. Have you ever heard of MuckRack? Yes, they're a nonprofit that exists to help file FOIA requests. All free, just wondering if it really makes the process more efficient. Thank you, Melissa. It doesn't, not for me. Here's why. And go, by the way, it's I think it's MuckRack, muckrock.org. The reason it doesn't, Melissa, is because there are so many organizations that you're going to have an online form for, and that would not necessarily be able to expedite it. So Melissa, if I were doing this at a federal level, there is another federal level provider that I use. It's really easy, and I wish I could tell you the name of it, but there's a couple. And that means if I'm going to hit the Department of Education up, the Department of Housing, Treasury, if I'm going to do all those, I'll just do it very streamlined, and that makes it easy. But if I'm going to do a particular school, district, and state, it's so individualized for me personally. It just makes it quick if I can have a standard form, like a standard email. Once you get that, you guys, you just plug all the stuff in, bam, 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 and you can transfer that to a form or to an email. So that's what I think. Okay, are there any other questions? I'm going to take a few questions before we wrap up. Any tiny little virtual hands? Okay, well, I hope just to recap everything, you need to have a working thesis before you start, a research question. What are you trying to investigate? When you ask your question, right, you want to say, who would know this information? And have it be a couple of different sources. Well, it would be, if I'm looking for an equity training, it would be the actual school and the actual district, right? Then I would ask for contracts for all equity companies for years 2021, 2020, 2019, maybe even 2018, so that I know this in context. And I'll say, wow, in 2018, they were doing equity trainings and these look okay. This looked like it was a good equity training. And then we got into, oh, your skin color is the wrong skin color. You go sit in the corner, so that you can tell the story of how things hit the skids. And then you're also going to want to send it to the right place. Stay on their behinds every week. How's it coming? Great. Get a first name. Hey, Sally, great weather we're having. How's it coming? Hey, Cheryl, you know, I know it's been 3 weeks, and you know what the statute says. When am I going to have my stuff? That has almost always worked for me. Pick up the phone. Never be afraid to pick up the phone. In fact, I pick up the phone. I'm from the South, so I start talking to people like I've known them forever. And I'll just say, hey, listen, you know, by the time you said you were going to send me those records, and they, you know, they just send me the stuff, I'll just wear them down. So, so here's the last comment. This is obviously work to be done in a given time. It is successful. Most school districts would need to wait maybe years for the changes to be implemented. So I guess a lot of damage can still be done in the interim. Not true. Because I'm telling you what, right here, we put people in a damn corner, full court press, that we're watching everything. And we use Saul Alinsky as well technique. So we isolate people. We find out as much info as we can. And, you know, all eyes are on all times. And I can tell you, we are very effective in doing that. And so FOIAs are a very important part. So Sloan, do you think that there needs to be more social media demonstrating solidarity with parents across the nation, flexing muscles? I always love to flex muscles. Yes, I absolutely do. I never want parents to feel alone. We will stand alone, but I never want parents to feel alone. So as much, you know, support as we can give, you know, we do need to bind together. And that's why, I mean, we're in 22 states, 23 states right now, maybe even 24, 23 states right now, because We have parents group all across the country that maybe there's 15 or 20 of them in one area, but they want to be bigger. They want to have access to journalists. They want to have access to big things. And so if you haven't already, think about joining up with us. Let's see, Silicon Valley, babe, I already love you. I seem to be leading the way, CRT in Silicon Valley. A group of us have been speaking up since February and no elected official cares. I'm grateful to be on the Zoom call. Thank you. It seems like no one cares until they do. You're always going to feel like that dude at the wedding on the dance floor that starts dancing way before people are drunk and are actually dancing. And then like an hour later, everybody's on the dance floor. You're like the guy at the wedding dancing drunk right now. Have fun with it, okay? Because the dance floor is going to be crowded very soon. I can tell you, people do not like what's going on. People in Silicon Valley, they do not like what's going on when it comes to their doorstep, and it will, believe me. Oh, it will. All right. So I want to let you know that you guys are not alone. You are never going to walk alone. Okay. I want you to make a commitment in the next week just to do one record request. Just one. And you have to do it, I would say, in the next few days. Okay, do it. Just the best thing to do is get out there and ask for, give me your equity contracts for any equity providers or any diversity, or use several words for the last 3 years. Do it and then tell me what happens. Okay. All right. Well, have a good evening, you guys. Thank you for joining in tonight. And always give us any information you have. If you're finding good information, but don't want to write about it or don't know how to, always let us know and we're here to help. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
Bye-bye.